Hello guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Ultimate Performance community. I'm Daniel Cook. Welcome to the newest members for this week. I hope you've enjoyed perusing the group and seeing the free trainings and seeing what's going on a week-to-week basis. I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to welcome my guest for this evening. A wonderful man. I've had the pleasure of knowing this man for, well, showing my age, probably the best part of 16 years. I moved to London in 2004 to do my Masters in Musical Theatre and Dramatic Art at the Mount View Academy, and I had the pleasure of working with this gentleman as as an acting coach primarily, but also in terms of the journey that the community here is going on, a great and fabulous storyteller. Andrew spent the best part of 10 years at the Royal Shakespeare Company. He also back in the day, started off doing rep theatre, which is not something that happens so much anymore, but I'm delighted to welcome him here to the Ultimate Performance community to have a chat with us today. Welcome, Andrew. Oh, I've just put you in the green room, I think, Andrew. Hang on a minute. I'm going to add you to the left. I'm going to add you. Here you are.
There.
There you are.
Thank you.
So, Andrew, one of the primary reasons of bringing you here today, because obviously I help this group is to help actors, speakers, singers, and presenters discover what I call their ultimate performance. And you, over the years, have discovered many ultimate performances in various forms. I know rep theatre is where you started, and Shakespeare is obviously one of your passions. Tell us a little bit about how you started off in rep theatre and what that meant in terms of the learning cycle and doing it and how much you learnt in your infinite stages of being an actor.
Well, I didn't train as an actor. My parents were very much against the idea and told me they would not support me. So actually, I just went off on my own, thinking, well, okay, I wrote to every repertory company in the country, and at that time, most towns had a resident company. And I got a job as a technical assistant stage manager at the Old Phoenix Theatre in Leicester. No acting required, and that was fine. I just wanted to get in. But there was a wonderful director running the company called Robin Midgley, who sadly is no longer with us. And Robin stopped me in the corridor one day and said, do you want to be a stage manager or do you want to be an actor? And I said, oh, I want to be an actor. And he said, okay, well, leave that with me. And he started putting me in the back of scenes with very little responsibility, but actually gave me stage time, much to the chagrin of my stage manager, who said, you're not supposed to be on stage. I hired you because I need somebody to make the tea, whatever. But I was so fortunate, Dan, in that first year. Robin did a play called Son of Man by Dennis Potter. It's about the life of Jesus, a most wonderful play. And it was the first theatre staging of it. It had been on television. And to get to play Jesus, he got an actor called Frank Finlay. Now, Frank had just left the National Theatre, where he had played Iago to Laurence Olivier's Othello. And I was in scenes with him. I remember there's one scene where I was playing what was called a temple policeman, and I stood right next to Frank, and I watched him closely day after day after day, with almost blurting out as I did so, oh, sorry, can you stop? Could you just do that again? Show me what you just did. And just watching Frank work, and many other older actors, I started to pick up what was required, and they gave me tips. And I went on to another rep in Farnham in Surrey, where I became a fully fledged actor. And again, there was a few of young actors, but we brought in the director there brought in some wonderful experienced actors who just passed on gems of information, and would also be quite, firm with you and say, look, don't move when I'm saying that line because there's a laugh. And if you move, I won't get the laugh. So stand still during that line. Just basic things like that. But also, what time do they arrive for rehearsal? How soon are they learning their lines? How do they use a rehearsal? So many, many things that over the years I took up almost sort of subconsciously, I suppose, and hopefully became a better actor because of these wonderful. One of the things I remember was predominantly in rep, and I'm a big fan of this. I was playing at the old theatre in Ipswich, which isn't there anymore. But there was a wonderful old actor there who again sadly died last year, called Tony Kenway. And he'd been in the business for 50, 60 years. And I always used to call him Mr. Kenway because he had that stature. On the very last night, he came up to me and he said, I hear you're leaving to go to Harrogate to play Ormond Lloyd in When We Are Married, which I indeed was about to do. And I said, oh, yes, Mr. Kenway. He said, just one thought. He said, do you know that moment with the maid and the older wife at the end of the first scene? And I said, yes. And he said, 5 double takes, turned around and walked away. And that was the only thing in my head when I played Ormond Lloyd. There are 5 laughs here. I've got to do 5 double takes to get 5 laughs. And it was moments like that that were just quite challenging and thrilling from these older boys and girls.
Yeah, wonderful. And I know during this time I've got a lot of kind of clients that I'm working with at the minute, and also people in the group have reached out to me to say, how have I overcome like anxiety and how have things knocked my confidence over the year. And I think this year's been very unkind to us thespians in more ways than one, but also it's not allowed us to create and work on our craft in a public sense. But how did you, obviously I can imagine being a young rep actor, obviously thrilled and delighted to be there, but were there moments, I'm sure there were moments in your early career that you were probably terrified of not only probably going on stage, but trying different things. And I know we've discussed this in our masterclass, but being brave about acting choices. So how have you over the years overcome that anxiety or those nerves enough, or not necessarily overcome them, but channel them into a place where you can be brave and make a brave acting choice with them? Does that make sense?
I think that's the key, Dan, what you've just said.
Yeah.
I always got the feeling when I was involved in training young actors that there was a sense they believed that they were anxious and nervous, but as time went by, that would go away. And I, in the kindest possible way, said, no, it won't go away. If anything, it'll get worse.
Yeah.
That actually auditions, first nights will get worse. I think as one gets older, one knows more, and so you know where the pitfalls are more. I don't know. Every first night, even now after 50 years, on the first night, I found myself in the wings saying, why do I voluntarily put myself through this? I choose to put myself through this agony. Why? But it's a question of accepting that is the natural state of things, but finding, as you say, channels, strategies really to overcome, not overcome, but to put those anxieties in a place where they are not overwhelming you. But again, I learned an awful lot. I worked with Derek Jacobi several times in my career. Derek was absolutely petrified. It was, I remember, in 1990, and Derek had come from the National, where he'd worked with Olivier and played wonderful roles. And we were late going up on the very first night, the West End press night at the Haymarket. And we'd already toured for 12 weeks, so we knew the play well. But Derek had to start the play on stage in the black. And then when the lights came up, he was discovered there. On the press night, it was 7:30. We were all fluctuating, I think, including Derek, between, oh, please let me start, I can't bear this, and look, can we all just relax? This is our 72nd performance of this show. I think we know what we're doing. But everybody was swinging between those two places. But it got to 25 to 8, 20 to 8. nearly quarter to 8, when suddenly the stage manager said, "Okay, we've got the go." Just before that moment, a little voice from the centre of the stage, and it was Sir Derek Jacobi, said, "Oh, please let it start," like a 4-year-old. And then I felt better, because I thought, if Derek's feeling that after what he's been through,
Yeah.
then I think a whole lot better. One of the stumbling blocks you ask about, taking brave decisions, I made a big mistake throughout my 10 years in rep by thinking that rehearsal was about working at night on what you were going to do the next day in rehearsal, then doing it, and hopefully getting out of the room without any blood on the floor and without the director shouting at you, but actually not using that time at all. I think when the penny dropped was when I went to Stratford in in the main house. My first main house production was 1981. There was an actor called Geoffrey Hutchins who played Bottom, and we played Midsummer Night's Dream. I was playing Starveling, one of the mechanical, and we must have done them getting on for 200 performances at Stratford and then at the Barbican. And Jeff was wonderful as Bottom, but what he showed me was every night he was completely fresh. Now, if you analysed it, you'd think, well, probably he's doing very much what he did last night, but he didn't make it feel like that. He was quite likely to go off at any moment on something improvised, something that took his fancy at that moment. And that's when I realised that actually that's what acting was about. It was about play and not actually slavishly preparing what you were going to do. And another, equally around that time, I went to Harrogate and I played in View from the Bridge. And the man who played Eddie Carbone, wonderful actor called Derek Gilbert. Derek was wonderful. And one night I said to him, "Derek, can I just ask you, how do you prepare? Do you go home and work on the part? What do you do?" And he said, "No," he said, "I leave the theatre after rehearsal and I walk to my digs. And I think about the day and I think about what's been discovered, what I've done, etc." He said, "I put the key in the front door and then I forget about it. And I forget about it until the following morning when I come through the front door, I close it behind me, and then I start thinking about what the scenes are that we're going to be doing that day." And I realized suddenly that's what rehearsal was. Not preparing slavishly, but actually walking into a room and going, "Right, I wonder what we're going to discover today." And that's how to work. But it's also being brave is really, really hard. I mean, I remember Trevor Nunn saying, you never get anywhere in a rehearsal room till somebody's willing to metaphorically drop their trousers.
Yeah.
And I think he's right, because there are times when I've done things and been brave and thought, "Oh my God, this can't be right. Oh my God, what am I doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop it. Do what you normally do." But then being told by the director that at last I was getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I was kicking it up in the air and discovering.
Yeah.
Robert Lindsay was another great actor, was another great influence on me. He, I'll tell you quickly, I did Beckett. There was the same production with Derek Jacobi, and Robert played Henry II. The first thing we did was read the play, but then in the afternoon on the first day, the director decided to do an opening scene involving Robert and another actor. And I thought, I'm going to watch this. I want to. Robert, he said, "Look, I tell you what," he said, "just come on from where you are, and let's just run the scene, see what happens, just suck it in and see." Which they did. Robert was stunning. I mean, he could have gone on that night. Absolutely brilliant. But the point of the story is this. They then huddled around the director, some chap which I didn't hear, and then the director, Elijah, said, "Okay, do it again." They did it again, and Robert did not repeat a single moment of what he'd done the first time. He played it all differently. And he could have gone on stage with that as well that night. It was brilliant. And then they did a third version, and it was different again. And I learned that day, this is really significant, that Robert was basically saying, I always use the number 147, I don't know why. There are 147 different ways to say any one given line. And it is my job to discover what those 147 are by trying them out. And then maybe with the help of the director coming down in a kind of ballpark where you think, I think that's probably the area I want to be in, but I will still leave it open so that on the night I can play it slightly different if I wish. And that's what Robert taught me. So it was about finding that freedom. And the nerves thing, you've got to have strategies. A wonderful story, Laurence Olivier, who of all people had this extraordinary confidence, even arrogance in the right way on stage, went through a crisis of confidence on a Long Day's Journey into Night, and kept forgetting his lines in rehearsal, just couldn't get through it. He was terrified, but came through it in the end. A few years later, the great film actor John Mills went back onto the West End stage and was finding immense difficulty finding the confidence to actually be back on the stage again. And so he thought, I'll go and talk to Olivier. So he spoke to Olivier and said, what do? I can barely open my mouth. I'm so terrified. And Olivier said, do what I do. He said, what I do is I go on stage once the show is up and running, at about 5 to 7, and I can hear the audience out in the foyer. They're not been let in, but I can hear them. And I say in the loudest possible voice, and please everybody forgive me here, because I'm going to swear, but it is what Olivier said. He said, I say from the stage in the loudest possible voice, you are about to see the greatest fucking performance of your entire theatre-going lives, and I will be giving it, you lucky people. He said, then turn away, go to your dressing room, and the next time you walk on that stage, in the show, that will be the last thing that you said to that audience. So he found that strategy to actually say, that is what gets me on stage. At the same time, the other thing is a warm-up. I didn't train, so I didn't do a warm-up till I think I went to the RSC, because I was always warmed up, because I was rehearsing all day and performing at night in rep. But it doesn't matter what a warm-up is. I personally have been known to throw myself down sets of stairs in order to get out of communal warm-ups and break my ankle. But it doesn't matter. You do what you do. The image I use is that you are a wonderful runner called Linford Christie, who was in the Olympics. And there was a shot of him looking down the 100-meter stretch in the Olympic final. And the focus in his eyes was absolutely unbelievable. And it's that. So you can have a cup of tea and a fag. You can sit in a darkened room for half an hour. I don't care what it is. But when you walk on that stage, you've got to be utterly energized and focused. And nothing else exists in the world except that. That gets you over. Well, it doesn't get you over the nerves, but that helps you to contain the nerves.
Yeah.
Plus the fact you tell yourself, it's my job. If in doubt, sometimes when I used to be a great giggler on stage, I'd laugh at the drop of a hat. But I got over it by thinking, those people out there have paid, in those days, £30. Don't you dare. Don't you dare laugh.
Yeah.
Don't you dare go on there and be paralysed with nerves. They've paid £30. Give them the show. Yeah. That's what they've paid for. Get on with it. Then get off stage and maybe vomit into a bucket because you're so nervous. But not while you're on stage.
No, I think that's great advice. I also wanted to just discuss, because obviously back in the day when I was at Mountview, which is getting on some years ago now, let's not discuss how many. Obviously, I was on the musical theatre course, postgraduate, and there was also an acting course. And we were just discussing before we went live. The wonderful Philip Cost came and did a masterclass for us, and I mean, Philip Cost is a master in his own right of both singing. Well, a triple threat, really, isn't he? And
he's a god.
I remember distinctly his just words about communication and storytelling. And I think storytelling, also part of one of the modules in the academy, but storytelling is a compelling part of being an actor or a speaker. The engaging an audience with a story is such an important part of what we do as performers. And I think it's interesting because you were saying, and I'll let you kind of expand on this, but the actors in the course at some stage had to do a song, a musical theatre piece, not necessarily musical theatre, but they had to sing a song and communicate a song, and us musical theatre performers also had to do some straight acting, and albeit I think it was Shakespeare at the time. And funnily enough, you went on to say, well, he or you, or but maybe both, went on to say that funnily enough that the actors in that particular model, and bearing in mind maybe we've just gone through some transformative coaching from someone as yourself or Philip or an array of the other marvellous people at Mountview at the time, but the singers performed the Shakespeare better at the time, and in your opinion, and the actors sung better because the actors weren't worrying about sounding beautiful, they were worrying about giving compelling storytelling.
Yes.
And I think that was just very interesting.
Yeah, that was Philip's appraisal. He came 2 years running, and I remember before the second year, that's what he said to me. He said, last year, he said, the great revelation to me was that the actors did the best songs and the MTs did the best Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Because the musical theatre people understood about using language that you can extend words, which is, and really inhabit them, which is what you need in Shakespeare. Whereas the actors were so clear that they weren't very good singers that they emphasized the the story aspect. And one of the things at the time I remember was Frank Sinatra had died not long before. And there was an obituary which said that the reason Frank Sinatra was the world's greatest singer was not because he had the best voice, but he told the best stories. Yeah. And I always remember that was sort of what Philip emphasized, which is why I wanted to get him in. And he was so wonderful. You probably remember, I remember having to say to him, Philip, you're going to have to stop now, otherwise they're going to lock us in.
Yeah. No, he was truly
but he was wonderful.
Remarkable. Well, thank you so much. That's all we've really got time for in Live Till 5 tonight, Andrew. But thank you so much. I was compelled to have you on in terms of what's going on in the academy. So, Andrew, someone really wants to speak to Andrew. Maybe it's your agent.
Well, that'll be a turn up. Go on. Sorry, Dan.
So that's okay. So thank you, guys. As always, if you'd like to know a bit more about what it looks like to work with me or personally in the Ultimate Performance Academy, I run a 12-week, 90-day course to help you discover your ultimate performance, of which Andrew does 2 wonderful masterclasses in. They're not to be missed. So please click the link below. There'll be a little calendar link. If you'd like to learn more, I've got some time on my calendar on Friday this week to jump on a call and discuss how that looks. But I'm so thank you to Andrew for being here this evening. I hope you're all having a great week. And as always, I'll be here next Tuesday live at 5 with some more insight information to helping you discover your ultimate performance. Thanks, and see you soon.
Thank you.